We are working very closely with some of the groups that you've talked about in regard to public health, in regard to getting testing out around the state. And these groups are an integral part of that as they work through the federal clinics who serve people throughout the state who are underserved. And we are working directly with these clinics to make sure that we get testing out. That's just one example in the healthcare area.
But in terms of what we've seen happen over the last night with protests and things like that, that's what I mean.
Okay, then I must have missed your question. Just state it again, then.
Okay. Moving forward, what kinds of conversations and possible actions do you plan to have or take with such organizations like the NAACP or Urban League when we talk about racism, fear, especially at a time when there's much frustration, but in connection with the protests?
With them on health issues. That is very, very important. The tragedy that we're talking about today did not occur in Ohio, but that does not mean it does not impact us. That does not mean it's not important. So one of the things that I think is important is for the governor to be a good listener. So I'm going to be communicating and listening to these very respected organizations to see what ideas that they have as we move forward. So that's my commitment.
Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Andy Chow with Ohio Public Radio and Television Statehouse News Bureau. When it comes to the issues of racial health disparity, and now with the issue of people of color dying under police custody, there are leaders out there who say that in order to address these problems, it must be recognized that there is structural racism. Do you believe that structural racism plays a part in all of this? Do you believe that it's a root of the problem here?
Well, I think there's a lot of things in play. Does racism still exist? Sure. Is an implicit bias that we all have, and sometimes, most of the time, we don't recognize we have that. Yeah. Are there long-term disparities in access to health that are driven by a number of different things? Yeah, there is. Most of what drives a lot of things where you see disparity is lack of access to education, lack of access to health care. The history of racism certainly does have something to do with that, but it doesn't mean that every problem that we have is racist, or every time that we have a situation where an African American isn't getting the opportunity they need, it does not necessarily mean it's racism. What we have to do, I think, is to do everything in our power to see that every Ohioan has the most opportunity, the opportunity that to live up to their God-given potential. And wherever we find barriers, we need to knock those barriers down. And some of those barriers may have to do with racism. Some of those barriers may not have to do with racism, but you got to knock them down anyway. And so whether it's somebody who lives in the city, someone who lives in Appalachia, if people don't have opportunities, that is not only bad for them, but it's bad for society. And so we got to knock them all down. These are complex issues. And sometimes there's multiple reasons why people have barriers. And our attitude is, I know should be to try to knock those barriers down.
Thank you.
Hello, Governor. Jim Province with the Toledo Blade. Could you take us through what was happening last night, the discussions that were taking place, what the preparations that were going on? Were we expecting this to happen last night?
I was not expecting this to happen. I got notification sometime in the evening that this was going on. This would be something that, unless it involves directly the State House, which ultimately this did, this would be something that normally the Columbus Police Department would handle. They would be in touch with the Highway Patrol and the sharing of information. So that would be how that is normally played out. I got my call probably, it was 10 o'clock. So maybe a little before 10 o'clock. But this, again, if this was something that was occurring on state property, a prison or something, I would have got the first call. But this is done normally. I mean, procedures, as far as I can tell, were followed correctly last night. Police took the lead. Columbus police take the lead, and that's the way it should have been handled.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Governor. It's Laura Bischoff, Dayton Daily News. You mentioned that you said as Ohioans protest throughout the state in the coming days, how many protests do you expect, and where and when, and what's giving you the idea that it's going to continue in other cities across Ohio?
Well, I'm reading the news accounts. The way the news works today, you guys tweet things and put things up, and I don't have to wait till my morning Dayton paper gets there. So, I'm reading it. I'm also talking. I talked this morning to Nan Whaley, and she in turn, my request was in contact with other mayors around the state. I got a little report coming back from her. Talked with her a couple hours ago, but just to got to get a report from what's going on around the state. And look, I mean, I'm guessing at some of it. I don't think we know where there are going to be protests. We have some indication on social media, things that have been seen. But, it's just important, I think, for, look, people have a right to demonstrate. They should. In some cases, they have an obligation to demonstrate. But it's important for them to be peaceful. We don't want to lose lives. We don't want to see people hurt.
Thanks.
Hi, Governor. Jim Oddie from WHIO TV in Dayton, Ohio. Thanks for doing this. Let's talk about tonight and tomorrow night. Are there any special preparations here at the State House or at any other state facilities that might directly or indirectly become a target of something like this? And I'm talking about violence now. What preparations might we see here to prevent a repeat of what happened last night?
Jim, I'm pretty transparent and open, but the one thing I've learned throughout the years is not to talk about security issues. So I'm not gonna respond to that. Are doing what they need to be doing at this point, but I'm not going to go into details about what preparations are there. That is not, talking about security is just not generally a good thing. But obviously steps are being taken in case that there is more violence. So yeah.
Thank you, Governor.
Hi, Governor. Rick Ruan from the Columbus Dispatch. You made a statement earlier to the African American community in Ohio that they're valued, but many of the protesters from last night would probably say that doesn't really play out practically in our state. What practical policy changes are needed beyond police training, as you already talked about, to make that a reality, and how will you work to make that happen?
Look, I think it has to do with everything that we do. We made a decision. I know a lot of people are unhappy about the decision, but when we had to cut education, we made a decision, quite candidly, not to cut the poorest school districts. Many of them have a significant number of African Americans. Some of these poor school districts are in Appalachia. But we made a conscious decision, and that was not popular with school districts that didn't have as many poor kids. These are decisions that we make in government every single day. And we have an obligation to help those who, for whatever different reasons, do not have the opportunities that others do. And so we have done that. My emphasis in this state legislature, I want to thank them. Their emphasis on early childhood education has a significant impact on the African American community. Their work and our work in regard to home visiting programs, so the kids get a good start in life. That is vitally important. But what we're doing in the area of health, where clearly there's disparities, where clearly there's inequities, have not solved all the problems. But we've committed to do everything that we can to try to solve those problems and try to create a more fair, more open, more equitable state for every Ohio citizen. So it's not what we're doing today. It's not what we're doing in response to protests. This is something, it's a work in progress that we need to be committed to as a people every single day. And that is my commitment, that as long as I'm governor, we will commit to that for those among us who are being denied opportunities for whatever reason, to do everything that we can to give them opportunities, whether it's better education, better opportunity for education, or whether it is health care or whatever that is.
Hello, Governor. This is Luis Gil with Ohio Latino TV. May I direct this question to the First Lady? Can I? Hello, ma'am. Thank you. Your husband, the governor, eloquently said that police officers risk their lives every day, and I agree totally. Don't you think, or would you like to be part of a task force to help the poor communities, the African American kids, young people, that the education is so vital that they risk their life every day for their future, for the lack of dreams, things that it leads to this?
Education, African American.
Well, obviously, I think what Mike just said and what we all believe is that the education for these kids is the most important thing we can do. And that's why, we're working so hard to get these kids that really need it, the poorer kids, help in the schools. And all the things that Mike's been working on all year, we know that that's the most important thing. It's just the little things that we do that I like to do is, what I care about is food, making sure these kids are getting good food. And, the Dolly Parton Library that I've been working with, it's just really to help these kids get a good start because they've got books in their homes and they have people to read them and they can learn how to read themselves, and just, all these little things that we do for kids, I think it's the most important thing.
Thank you very much.
Governor Jim Province again. I know it's early, but do we have any estimates on how much damage was done last night, any kind of a monetary figure? And do you have any concerns as to, in the state's current financial situation, to make those repairs?
That what, Jim, was the last thing?
With the state in its current financial situation, are you confident that you would have the finances to make the repairs?
I don't have an estimate. This building, as you know, and you all work in every day, is really a centerpiece of the state. It is something we're very, very proud of. It's got an amazing history. And so, we will fix what we have to fix, but I don't have an estimate of damages at all, and I'm sure that that'll be coming out in the next 24 hours, I would think, but I don't have an estimate of the damages, no.
Thank you.
Kevin Landers, WBNS 10 TV. Governor, you said moments ago that you didn't make a mention of George Floyd's death yesterday and that you said today that you regret that. Can you speak to the African American community and ensure them that you can better relate to their needs, their concerns in the future? Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I regret I didn't make a comment yesterday when we had a regularly scheduled press conference. I believe it's incumbent upon the governor to speak out about injustice, wherever we do in fact see that injustice. Quite candidly, I was focused on COVID-19 and testing, which has been occupying pretty much all my waking hours, as Fran can tell you. And so it's not an excuse, it's just a fact. I walked in, that's what I had on my mind. I'd obviously seen the videos and seen them numerous times. So I think that I have a long history of being a good listener, listening to people throughout the state of Ohio. But we always can do better.
Thank you.
Hey, Governor, it's Laura Bischoff again. You mentioned that Ohio has 1,000 police departments or law enforcement agencies. Do you have any idea how many or what percentage of them have adopted the AG's best practices on use of force? I believe that when you were AG, that was recommended like 5 years ago, maybe?
I do not. But I'm sure we can get that for you, or at least get some idea. They don't have to do it word for word, but we think these are the best practices. Now it's possible, I suppose, the police department could have even better practices, but we'll see if we can find that out. I think our team does know that.
Thank you.
Hi, Governor. It's Andrew Tobias at Cleveland.com again. I just wanted to ask when you first saw the video of George Floyd and what you thought when you first saw it, what your general reaction was.
Tragically, we've seen this so many times that I don't recall when I first saw it. Obviously it was fairly shortly, probably after it occurred, but I don't. Now, I was trying to think back. I don't recall seeing it before Tuesday night. I suspect it was Tuesday night, but I don't really know. So probably Tuesday night that I first saw it, and just to get, it's so painful to look at, and it just, it's just absolutely horrific.
Thanks.
That was our last question, Governor.
Very much. Have a good day, everybody, and we'll, barring something else, we'll see you all back here at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Thank you.
We now join our regularly scheduled program, already in progress.
Sometimes feel like you had to buy the expensive extended warranty to get the good coverage. That's never the case with us. Our windows are so durable and our installers are so talented. Unlike some other companies, our warranties cover the windows, patio doors, and the installation.
It's really impressive that they sell the product, they manufacture the product, they install the product, because then you're dealing with one company, and you're dealing with one company that has a long-standing and solid reputation.
Let Renewal by Andersen help